So this group of people board the plane, and all of a sudden the head count is different than what the stewardess has on her paper. And so she's looking, and there's 35 people on the plane, but 34 on her list. So she's looking it over, and she's talking to her co-host, and she's like, hey, does this look right? And the girl's like, I don't know, there's 35, there's 34 on the paper. So they start looking around, and sure enough, there's 35 people on the plane. And so the lady's looking at her paper and going down the list, and a lady walks by her. She says, hey, can you go bring me a drink? I'm sitting right next to my husband right over there. And she points to a man sitting in a chair by himself. And she was like, yep, no problem. So she's still trying to figure out the head count, but she's like, I got to start things on this airplane. We got to get things moving. So she decides to go and make this lady her drink. So she walks up to the gentleman and she's like, hey, here's your drink that your wife asked for. And he looked at her and he said, what are you talking about? And she said, your wife, she just asked me for a drink. I'm bringing it to you because she is headed back that way. And he just looked like a deer in the headlights. And he said, I don't know what kind of joke this is, but this isn't funny. And the stewardess is like, I'm just bringing you the drink that your wife asked for. And he's like, I don't know what kind of joke this is. It's not funny. And the stewardess is just completely taken back. And he begins shaking his head and he's like, no, that's not my wife's drink. And the stewardess is like, well, she just put in an order, like trying to explain to him that this is what she asked for. And she was describing her, dark hair, shorter, in her 30s. And the man just starts shaking his head again. And he's like, no, that's not possible. And she's like, okay, hoping he'll elaborate a little bit. And then all of a sudden, he looks at her and he's like, I don't know what kind of joke this is, but my wife died 3 days ago and I am flying to go bury her. She is underneath the plane right now. So they quickly realized who that 35th passenger was that wasn't on the list. He was with her, but he wasn't technically with her. So this guy's driving on the highway one night and he sees brake lights up ahead. So he slows down and he sees this SUV is stopped in the middle of the road. And he starts to look around and he can see there's a pickup off to the side of the road all by itself. So he gets out and he talks to the person in the SUV, and the SUV is like, yeah, I'm not sure whose pickup that is. So this guy decides to go check it out. So he goes and he's checking on the other side of the pickup, doesn't see anybody, starts walking in the woods a little bit to see if anybody needs help. And it's just really eerie. It's very, very quiet. And he kind of spooks himself and he's like, I don't see anything. So he starts heading back to his vehicle. And he walks up to the SUV and the SUV's like, I called in the pickup. So police are on their way. They'll come check it out. And this guy's like, okay, good. Kind of was weirded out anyway. So he went back to his vehicle and he headed off. A few days later, he is reading through the paper and he notices there is a story about a person that was missing and then found. So he's reading through it and he talks about a truck that was abandoned on the side of the road and it was reported. And then they went and looked in the woods and they found a owner of the truck who sadly was shot in the back of the head, execution style, and completely left. And they noted the time that they found it and the time that they thought he was deceased was minutes after this man had pulled in and decided to go look in the woods. He never saw anything, but it still gives him chills to this day because he was so close to that sad, horrific scene. So years ago, there is a group of friends and they decided that they're going to go to a really fun little concert at a bar in their local town. And they're getting ready to go. And all of a sudden, the girl is just like, I just have a really, really bad feeling about this. So she calls her boyfriend and her friends and she's like, I don't want to go. I don't know why. I just don't want to go. So they're like, okay, we're going to go back to your house or we're going to hang out. So they go back to her house and they're all having a good time and they all decide that they're not going to go to this concert. For whatever reason, she has a good intuition. She just doesn't want to go. Later that night, they found out that this bar where they were supposed to go caught on fire. And there were 400 people in this bar area at this concert. And unfortunately, there was only one exit. So they were all trying to rush through and get out. And sadly, 64 people died in this bar fire. And this group of people that decided not to go knew several of these people. And by pure chance, she just had a feeling and decided not to go. How's that for an intuition?